What's up, guys? Evan Aldo here. Welcome back to the channel. I haven't done a vlog in a long time. Been working on a lot of stuff lately. I want to talk to you guys about basically, one of the things I talk about a lot in these vlogs, which is belief system, your mental thoughts controlling your outside reality, essentially inside controlling outside, law of attraction, all these types of things, your belief system, which I think is really important. I mean, the first time I heard the term belief system, I was in high school. One of my friends was kind of into it at the time, and I think it helped him, at least in some ways. This was just many years ago. It just came to mind that. But to get something you really want, to get something you really desire, you have to believe. Number one, you have to believe it's possible. That's the number one thing. And obviously that's where it gets tricky because, if it's something that's hasn't been done that much, none of your peers have accomplished, something nobody around you has accomplished, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. That's where it can get a little bit tricky, harder to kind of reprogram your mind to believe that it's possible. One thing I was working on lately, very recently was, and another thing too, just being able to believe you have it, that'll get you towards that place. But to really, you got to keep that belief, that visualization, that view that you can accomplish it, that view that you already have it. Those are important things. But you can't change your mind. You can't get too negative all of a sudden, because what happens? You're doing really well towards it. You're doing incredible towards it. It looks like you're really gonna get there. It looks like you're really gonna get there. And then what happens? You hit a plateau. You're not improving at the rate that you used to be improving. Those are things that happen. Those are things that most common things that happen and may mess us up. You're not improving at that caliber. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this before, but there's a lot of people who say, most people give up right before they're about to succeed. And sometimes when you hear that, you're like, I don't know. But I think even if it's not true, it's good to believe that it's true because it'll motivate you. There's a lot of things that, we don't really know the complete answer to some things. There's people who talk about epigenetics. Epigenetics is essentially, if you guys aren't too familiar, Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about that a lot. Essentially, thoughts controlling your genetics and you being able to cure diseases and get stronger and reduce aging or reverse aging. Things that sound kind of true, kind of not true, kind of maybe you're just pie in the sky, whatever. And then there's other people that are the complete opposite. They'll tell you genetics is kind of like everything. How much money you're going to make. That's your genetics. All these type of things. You can't increase your IQ level. All this type of stuff. You're kind of destined based on who your parents were, where you have a place in society. That's the other view. But I don't know the exact. I think there's some. At the end of the day, there's probably some truth in most of what people say that at least sound somewhat intelligent and did some research. There's probably some truth in all these things, but you're better off, I think, to live not in full out delusion. There's a place for everything, not full out craziness delusion, but you're better off to believe the more positive side of that. Like, I can control my outcome with my thoughts. I can control these things. I can accomplish things if I believe I can do them. And if I surround, couple of things too, for example, like there's certain people who say, IQ is just IQ, how smart you are, whether you got it to be, successful, to be able to start a business, to be able to be, I don't know, a hedge fund guy, whatever, a good trader, whatever it may be. And then there's other people that say you can increase your IQ doing, certain things. I don't know. There's quite a few things like, I don't know, surrounding yourself with the right people. Some people say playing, a lot of things. People say learning a new language, playing chess, things of that nature. But, I think the number one thing is probably surrounding yourself with the right people, surrounding yourself with people who've especially accomplish. I mean, that's one of the most important things that's probably going to influence a lot of your life is who you surround yourself with. Now, what's positive now in this day and age is, if you don't have anyone that great around you, you could, listen to people on the internet that know what the hell they're talking about. Sometimes there's a lot of nonsense on the internet, let's be real. But, you could find the podcast and find the people that have some credentials and kind of listen to what they're saying. So when you get onto belief system, you get onto all that, two things I noticed when you definitely hit a lot of plateaus. Number one, normally there's just one element. I mean, I don't know about every situation, but normally from my experience, when something seems so insurmountable, seems so difficult, seems so, frustrating, you plateaued and all that, usually there's just one kind of missing piece that you need to figure out. It's like one thing that you could have been missing. That's a big thing too. One thing, a lot of times it's one thing that was missing. And number two, a lot of people, it's kind of like that line. You go up like this and then sideways, wow. Up like that, you know what I mean? That sideways, it's either going to break up or break down. It's like a damn chart, a damn technical analysis trading chart. It's either going to break up or break down. And if you give up, it's definitely going to go down. It's definitely going to break down. We kind of know that. Well, I guess there's exceptions to everything, but probably 90-something% chance, if not 100% chance in some cases. But if you keep going, odds are, and still could break down, who knows, but odds are, got a hell of a lot higher likelihood you're going to break upward. No matter what it is, whether it's, in my case lately, I was trying to fix my shoulder that I've been working on for a long time, and it gets frustrating sometimes, but, sometimes I look at it, I'm like, wow, I don't think I can't even recognize or remember a time where I even was able to accomplish that movement in my life and with my shoulder, ever since I can remember. And then other times, you're frustrated, here's as good as you're going to be able to get it, those type of things. But, you're better off to keep trying. That's the other thing too. If you're trying to solve something, just keep trying and keep trying different things. Was the famous thing by Einstein is like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that's a very smart thing. That's true. But if you keep trying different things, that's not insanity. That's smart. Trying different ways. And like I said, it's usually one missing point that a lot of people miss. The 80-20 principle. I'm sure you guys have all heard of that. 80% of your effort, or 20% of the things you do goes towards the 80% of the results. Most people are familiar with that. I don't think that's true in every single case in the world. There's exceptions to every rule, but most of the time, I think that's the case. And sometimes it's that 20%, just that little 20% that people are missing, and then they can get 80% of the results. They can get an 80%, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Rate of return, or what? I don't know. But ultimately, that could be kind of the missing piece. There's always 1, 2, it's less than you think a lot of times. It's less than you think when you're trying to, put those missing pieces in. I think a lot of, for example, maybe for trading, it could be risk management is what a lot of people are missing. It could be something else. It could be lack of technical analysis skills. It could be, I don't know, but a lot of times it's only those little things. And the positivity is definitely important. You don't want to, there's a lot of people I was listening to, and you're talking about genetics for anxiety, for all this and that. You're better off to believe that you can kind of create your own genetics, create your own reality than listen to being destined. Unless you believe you have the best genetics in the world and you're so smart and this and that, and you know what I mean? Then maybe it could help you because it's kind of that kind of belief there. But you're better off, I think, to stick with the more kind of positive side where you can kind of create your own free will, create these things, because it's kind of just, a blame game sometimes if you're just oh, this is just my genetics, or this is that, Things are very malleable. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The older you get, it probably, from what I've read and heard and studied, it gets a little bit harder to change things as you get older. Now, it doesn't mean if you're older, it's impossible to change things, but, I'm not complete, you got to look at it that way. So what I'll say is, see, there's two different ways to interpret everything. Use this as motivation to start now, to start quicker, to have that sense of urgency. Because you're younger, it's going to be easier. Every day you wait, it's going to be a little bit harder. Now, that's not to discourage you. Like I said, it's not to discourage you if you're older. You know, you look at, it's kind of crazy too. I was looking at Trump, who knows if it's real, but Trump's like medical record, he's got like, his numbers are like better than probably mine, or I don't even, better than people in their 20s. I think he takes his cholesterol medicine or whatever. I think that's it. But, you know, I was looking at his number. I'm like, my resting heart rate's real low. I mean, you know, everything looks, it's like better than somebody who's probably 18 years old in a lot of cases in terms of those numbers. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but, you know, you look at those type of things. I mean, is it genetics? I mean, maybe part of it is, or is it just, you know, kind of that belief system, you know? Trump is into law of attraction stuff. That's what of all people, not the biggest fan of Alex Jones. Like, you know, I'll say the same thing everyone says about him. I don't know that much about him really, but he was talking about, you know, how the strangest secret, which is a recording by Earl Nightingale, a really good one to listen to about kind of LOA and, you know, kind of similar to the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich type stuff. Apparently, Trump has listened to that hundreds and hundreds of times. So Trump, you know, that's the view. How do you become big? How do you become president of the United States? A lot of those dudes, though, the thing is, they do have kind of reps as kind of being scammers a little bit. You know, it's kind of like you look at, you know, Trump coin, then Melania coin, like, president may be a little bit of a grifter with some of that. But I mean, it depends how you define that. But all of those dudes do have a little bit of that, you know, in term, you know, as it goes around. I'm not saying, you know, I think there's much ethical ways to use these things and to do it in the right way, you know, as I have. And, you know, you just gotta kind of look at those things, you know. That's the main criticism they have, some of those, you know, when you look at all that type of stuff. But I think it was a pretty big breakthrough, you know, And I mean, you know, you kind of, there's two ways to look at things. You know, some people look at it, the whole thing is a zero-sum game, where, you know, if I get more, I have to take away from somebody else, or a positive-sum game where if I make more, other people make more too. You have to look at it as a positive-sum game, because if you look at it as a zero-sum game and be pessimistic, it's going to make it harder for you to accomplish something. It's going to definitely make it harder for you to do, you know, these type of things, to accomplish it. You know, it's all about motivation. It's all about kind of mindset. And, you know, I was listening to Naval Ravikant and Chris Williamson. Obviously, you know, anything with Naval Ravikant's normally very, very insightful. And, you know, he was saying, you know, it still is easier than ever to make money. It's still, despite all these distractions and all these, you know, different voices, it's still easier than ever to be successful. It's still easier than ever. And even if that's not true, you might as well believe it, because it's going to motivate you. You know, a lot of, you know, it's like, you know, take a person with a real high IQ level, you know, real good genetics, everything's perfect. They're completely unmotivated. Take somebody with just average thing, or even a little bit below average. They're completely motivated, and they're constantly actually making an attempt. You know, the person that makes an attempt is generally, I'd rather be working with the person who's going to make an attempt. And I think most people would agree with that. You know, I think that's kind of where most people would agree with that. So a couple of things I want you to take away. You know, a lot of times when you're frustrated, plateauing, you're just missing like one thing. It's one main thing you could be missing, and you may get that breakthrough really soon. A lot of people give up right before they're about to succeed. So use that as motivation. Give it some more time. Try to fight through that frustration just a little bit more. And kind of, I mean, the last thing, you know, let the universe kind of guide you a little bit. Wu Wei, you know, the flow, effortless action. You know, it has to be consistent. You know, you have to be consistent, but it doesn't have to be a complete nightmare. It doesn't have to, believe me, there would be, you know, if it was really that terrible and that hard to be successful, no one at all would really do. I mean, you know, it's way more about consistency than just hard work. You don't want to burn yourself out. You want to be consistent. That's the most important thing. And especially things that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be a complete nightmare. That's what I'm going to leave you on, guys. If you enjoyed the video, always appreciate it. Smash the like button. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.